All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is 12 o'clock, top of the hour. My name is Dan Sugg, and I am the Chief Mortgage Lending Officer here at Michigan First. I sit at Evergreen with the rest of our originations team here at Evergreen and our operations headquarters right behind the coffee shop. So if you visit Evergreen as one of our members, certainly you can stop by and say hi. We are super pleased today to be joining you with this topic. It's always a very popular topic, and certainly given our business flow recently, most of our business is first-time homebuyers. So today we'll be covering the topic of options for those first-time homebuyers, and we have a couple of great experts joining us today, which we'll introduce here in a second. The meat of our call really will be and if you're having audio troubles, just try as you can to maybe go jump back out and jump back in and rejoin. They'll should fix themselves. But just remember, we are recording today's program and certainly will be here for reference later. So like I said, the meat of our program will be a question and answer with our guests, our host today, and then we'll cover some tips and tricks and hopefully get to some closing remarks for all of you. So without further ado, please let me introduce Bob Eves. Bob is certainly a veteran of this homebuyer webinar that we do for you and has been on here a couple of times, but has been working in the loan industry for a while, I will say, and certainly has a lot of experience. So Bob, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your experience and what you bring to our members and particularly our first-time homebuyers.
Well, thank you. I take this seriously and I enjoy the privilege of working with borrowers, especially our first-time homebuyers. We take the time to educate, mentor, teach, train. It's a daunting process, overwhelming at times. We try to make it as simple as possible in a complicated process. We deal with our members, our borrowers, one-to-one, educate them, answer the questions, make sure we're getting the right product and any assistance or grant programs that are available to help them purchase a home.
Yeah, so much of what you do and what we do here at the credit union is education. I mean, we call ourselves loan officers, but we really should put education in that title somewhere because home buying can be very mystical. It can be kind of like this very daunting task and certainly a lot of terms and acronyms. And Bob, does make it easy for our first-time home buyers, as does many of our loan officers. So thank you, Bob, for joining us today. And next up is Renee Brown. Renee is a realtor with eXp. Renee, if you would do the same, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you can offer our members, and specifically those looking to buy their first home.
Okay, I sure will. Thanks. Can you guys see me?
We can see you, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know. It's like I can't see myself. But anyway, hi, everybody. I'm Renee Brown. I have over almost 13 years in the business. I consider myself as a home buying coach. I've done a lot of now first-time home buyer seminars with Michigan First. I've done them with other companies, but I enjoy Michigan First because we are a team. I've been working with Bob on a couple of transactions and the communication skills, and that's what first-time home buyers need. They need communication because absolutely, you're first-time home buyers. And so you don't know what you don't know until we run into it. But the communication skills with Michigan First, with your lender, is awesome. I tell people that you need to make a wish list. As a matter of fact, I formulated one, and if you would like that, whether you work with me or anybody else, you need to write down what you want because you can't see it till you write it down. So
yeah, and Renee, you said something that I think resonates with not only first-time homebuyers, but all homebuyers. And it reminded me of a time when I was actually buying my second home. We had children and a wife, and I was actually in the mortgage business at the time. And I remember freaking out at closing and being so nervous, even knowing what was going to happen. It's just such a really big decision in life and one that we all should take very seriously. And surrounding ourselves with a couple of experts like you and Bob is very important, and understanding not only do you have the information to give and share and that we as first-time homebuyers need, but that we model match, that you find somebody you like and trust and can kind of move through that process, because there is a ton of information. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to start interviewing you guys. So I'm going to start with you, Renee. What should first-time homebuyers consider when they're starting the process of buying a home?
Well, first they should consider their budget. That's the main thing, because if you're only approved for 200, there's not a plan or a thing that we could do to help you get a $500,000 home. So
Right.
you gotta stay within your budget. Also listen to the experts, save as much money as possible. Don't go out and buy furniture. Don't go out and buy a new car to match your new house. Save as much as possible in case things come up. So that's my number one tip. Listen to the experts. It's a process. You don't just go out and find a house and then you buy it. And here's the other tip. Do not get discouraged if you don't get an offer accepted on the first try. This is buying season right now, but your house is out there.
Yeah, that's great advice. You can never have, and Bob's going to talk about how much money you need, but once you buy the house, you can never have too much money saved up, because there's always something that pops up that you didn't expect before, which is kind of crazy. It could be a water bill or something that sneak attacks you from the back. And that's so important, the budgeting piece in that. And for a first-time home buyer, yes, this is a daunting process, but understanding the numbers and getting that squared before you make the commitment certainly is a path for success. So Bob, jumping over to you, Renee just touched on a couple of things I think that are super important. But if we think about a first-time home buyer, what does that really mean? Obviously you haven't owned a home, but what is the definition of a first-time home buyer?
Correct. Most of the programs will judge a first-time home buyer as someone not owning a home within the last 3 years. So there are some exceptions to that, and we'll really get into the weeds on that as we talk to the borrower. But generally, first-time home buyer would be somebody that has been living with family, renting, and generally for at least 3 years. And we want to make sure that we're getting you into a position, like Renee said, the savings, the predictability of payment. We don't want you to go from living at home, not paying any rent. I like to call it homeowner mode. We get you in a position where we talk about not interest rate, not necessarily sales price out of the gate, but what are you comfortable with? What payment do you want? So people don't look at, just like you said, utilities, things like that. So a first-time home buyer would be somebody that has not experienced home purchasing before, and we want to make sure that between Renee, myself, and the borrower, we work as a team to make it a wonderful, successful, and enjoyable process.
Yeah, and there's a difference between what you can get pre-approved for and what you can afford, and that number is different for everyone. But understand that the way lending works today, you can borrow up to, in some cases, 45% of your gross monthly income. And for you, that might not be a comfortable payment. So certainly understanding all of those numbers up front before you start making offers, which is really kind of cool. All right, so Bob, let's stay with you for 1 second. We talked about what the definition is, but so if I'm a first-time home buyer, in your opinion as a lender, what's the process? What should I be asking, or what should somebody telling me to do at this point?
What I always encourage and almost demand is that we sit down. Too often I'll talk to borrowers, members that have been pre-approved, pre-qualified over the phone. They have a piece of paper, whether it's legitimate, solid, they don't know what they got, why they got it. So I like to require at least for the first meeting, we'll meet 7 days a week, any location, but to make sure we're sitting down, getting the documentation. Tell me your story. Let's not tell you what you're doing. Let's find a way to accomplish the best option for you. So for a first-time home buyer, just like you're saying, Dan, I've gone through the same thing. I just bought a home and it was still a daunting process. And I've done this for 35 plus years. So I think getting the who, what, why, where, when, making sure the borrower knows who they're dealing with, knows the honesty and integrity, but knows what they're doing, and really dive into the process. When we're done, Dan, I want you to tell me why you got what you got, why you didn't get something else, and you understand the details of the transaction. Very, very important. So pre-approval, like you said, that's a piece of paper. You have to get the quality of the service to make sure you're getting what is best for you. So again, it's a wonderful, enjoyable process. So Renee's not showing you something that isn't something that you feel comfortable with.
Right. And I think of that, Bob, as the key, right? And remember, when you meet with somebody like Bob in that very beginning meeting, you're not committing to anything. It is a very much a safe space where you're going to share all of your information, the good, the bad, and sometimes the indifferent, you know, and just understand that it's never too late to start on that journey, regardless of what maybe your financial situation is at the time or your credit score. It may not be today, it may be down the line, but that's where it starts. And this is a journey. We have stories working with members multiple years to get them ready for home ownership and getting them in a place where they'll be able to sustain that and be successful. And you know what? There's a percentage out there. I've shared it on this call a number of times that if you rent to own a home, that same person, if you rent and own a home, after 5 years, the homeowner has 40 times the net worth. And that's where you start to grow generational wealth, which is kind of cool. So thank you, Bob, for sharing that. So certainly set up that appointment and at least start the conversation about home ownership. So moving back to Renee real quick. I'm a first-time home buyer. I've certainly considered my budget. I've met with Bob. Should I just go to Zillow and look for the house? Is that where I do it? Or do I find somebody like you? How does that work?
Oh God, please no, not Zillow. Most real estate agents do not like Zillow. If you have to go to an online site, I have one that I'll recommend, but I'll wait and tell you what it is. Find a reputable real estate agent. I mean, sometimes what I find, and just because you're on this call does not mean you have to work with me or my team. We would love for you to, but you don't have to. What I find people work with who they like, know, and trust. And if you're working with a newer agent, you can interview the agent and you can say, hey, what's your experience level? What's your availability? Because we asked you, what's your availability? When do you want to see houses? So think of that. That's all important. If you work a 9 to 5, you can't see houses till afterward, unless you have a longer lunch hour. And most of the time, real estate agents won't show you one house unless it's just convenient for everybody. So make a list, and I'll say that site that I was going to say, it's Redfin, but most agents can put you on automatic where you'll get the houses as soon as they come on the market as well. There's a coming soon part of the app that you can see houses coming on the market. Just you can visit open houses as well. But do know that if you don't have an agent and you're going to an open house, if that house is the listing agent, if that person in the house is a listing agent, they're working for the seller. Not that they won't work for you, but they are working. The first commitment is to the seller. So find a reputable agent. If you don't have one, ask your mortgage person, hey, do you have anybody you can recommend? Also, talk to the agent. If you don't feel comfortable with the agent, find another one.
Yeah, so there's a lot of online tools, but some are very broad and certainly will give you maybe the information or more information than you really need. So what Renee is saying is that get with an agent, get that specialized, personalized site that goes right to you and sorts your information. And you don't waste a lot of time looking at information that may be already sold or not even fit into your plan. So great advice, Renee. So Renee, just staying with you on that question. So you touched on it briefly, but how does a buyer's agent get paid? I know there's been a lot of talk lately in the news around the NAR settlement and a few other things. I don't want to go into too many details there because it's a few months off, but how do somebody like yourself who works with the first-time homebuyers, how do you get paid?
So all real estate agents get paid at the end of the transaction. We don't get paid up front. We don't get paid if you don't buy a house. Let's not go into the NAR settlement because right now we're still getting paid. The seller pays both agents at this point. So there is some fees that they charge, some agents charge and some companies charge, but those are paid at the end too. Most fees are paid except for the inspection and the appraisal. The fees are paid at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, the agent commissions, both listing and buyer, currently come out of the sales price of the home. And it's
Absolutely.
deducted prior to being delivered to the buyer. So certainly know that while your agent is working hard for you, to her point, and it's very similar to the loan officer, nobody really gets paid till the end of that transaction to make sure that they get it there successfully. So great information, Renee. Thank you for sharing that. And Bob, if I could move back to you briefly, we talked about what we should be doing to get started, but can I buy a house with no money? How does that work? How much money do I need to buy a house?
Well, I have this conversation with all of my first-time home buyers, and my answer is it's never enough. Whether it's the amount we need for the transaction. My wife and I bought our first house, moved in with no money in the 80s, and the hot water heater went out 2 days after closing. So unexpected things that you want to do, things you have to do. We'll walk through any programs, assistance, whatever. But yes, there are programs such as the VA, which is an outstanding program, a USDA, which is a rural development loan, less populated areas. Those allow zero down. Doesn't mean you should not have money to put into the transactions. Even if we have assistance or grants, I always encourage our borrowers to save as much as possible. Renee alluded to that too. Cash is king. I always talk to my buyers about getting in homeowner mode. I've learned that you change your lifestyle. You bring your lunch to work. You don't buy the big ticket items. You stop the traveling. Does that have to always be that way? No, but we want to get you into a comfortable, predictable savings pattern. But yes, there are programs with zero down. But again, we still want the member to have as much money as possible, hopefully money in checking and savings. And really, a big benefit would be if they have a 401k, even if we're not tapping that or using that, they have that as a reserve, a rainy day fund. So yes, to answer your question, but we walk through what are you doing now? What are we looking at a payment? Just getting you into a predictable savings pattern.
So I do need a little bit of money. I know MISH is a popular one, and certainly there is some down payment assistance, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But what are some of the other first-time homebuyer programs, Bob, that are out there only for first-time homebuyers?
Well, we're blessed to be able to participate in a lot of programs that I don't know are offered across the board. We do have the MISHDA, which is a down payment assistance. So when you look at assistance, you have credit score and income requirements, and we walk you through that. That offers up to $10,000 as an assistance, and that will be able to be used for down payment, closing costs, whatever you need it to be used for. You need a minimum of 1% of the purchase price of your own funds in the transaction. Another program that we're very fortunate to be participating in right now is the Federal Home Loan Bank Grant Program. That allows up to $20,000 that if you qualify for the program and live in the home for 5 years, that $20,000 is yours. So we will always exclusively look for the best program for you, not for the credit union. And if we can combine MISHDA with the grant, we will do that. So we'll use whatever we can, but again, very important to have any money you can save up into the transaction.
Yeah, and of course FHA and a few other programs that allow that. There are designed specifically for first-time home buyers that allow
Right.
for certain things, but the HOP funds, HOP funds, they're called, at FHLB, are only for a period of time a year. They do get exhausted. So, and it is, both of those programs have income limits. So certainly some things to consider. But again, another reason why you want to align yourself with somebody like Bob has access to all these programs. You know, he just talked about $30,000 of down payment money if you qualify to buy a house, which is unheard of. It's crazy. And that money, like the HUP funds is forgivable and the mischief funds are not forgivable, but there's no payment due on it. And you only repay it if you refinance or sell the home down the road. So really good information. So Renee, I'm going to pop back to you for a minute. I'm a first-time home buyer. You know, I don't even know where to start or what to start looking for. So what should I be looking for in a house? Like how does one even start that? I mean, should I be looking for a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial out in a very nice neighborhood, or should I be looking for my budget, or where do I start?
So location, location, location. Budget, budget, budget. Because if your budget does not fit the location, then we have to decide what you're willing to live with. We may be able to find you a beautiful house. Maybe I want to live in Bloomfield, but I can't afford to live in Bloomfield. So maybe we can find you a nice house in Royal Oak.
Right.
Something that you can live with. You need to decide, if you have 3 children, you know, a 1-bedroom condo is not going to work for you, even though it fits your budget. So you need to decide what your needs are. That's why I said I have a wish list that I send out to people, and you give me your bedroom count, your bathroom count. Right now, I'm working with a buyer. She has 4 children. She has to have 4 bedrooms because she has 2 boys, 3 boys and 1 girl. And she has to have 2 bathrooms. That's a must on her list. If we get a half bath, that's a bonus. I just talked to another agent, and he said he's a photographer, and he's taking pictures for me. And he said, I told him I have a house coming on the market that he's taking pictures. He said, he said the house might work for his mother. He said, but she has to have a garage. So if you have to have those things, let your real estate agent know what you have to have.
Yeah, those have to haves. You just brought up a pretty interesting point for me. So I heard you say at the beginning of the call, start with budget, right? And if you start with your budget and then you get into your have to haves, have you ever run across a scenario where you couldn't find a home for somebody?
Never.
Yeah.
People will give up, but I've never not found the house.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a while, but I've never, unless the customer goes away, I've never not found the house.
Yeah. We've had first-time homebuyers get beleaguered and maybe put it on pause for a little while, but listings are starting to come back. I'm starting to see houses come back to the market. It's not certainly where it needs to be, but there is, my son just bought his first home recently, and he lucked out. It was like the second house he looked at, but it was a daunting process for him, but it happened. And there was probably a couple of points in that process where he thought, maybe I should just rent, you know, but we stayed with it and he ended up being successful. So Bob, back to you briefly. You know, one of the biggest, I think, concerns after money that our first-time home buyer is credit. Well, how much, I mean, like, how debilitating is that? If I have bad credit or no credit, like, what are you going to tell me if I come meet with you?
You're absolutely right. And a lot of what we do, as you had alluded to, is educating. A lot of our members have damaged credit. We are going to help them try to determine what they can do to improve their credit. Some things are easily corrected. Some take a long path to correct. Like you're saying, I'm working with borrowers that I've been talking to for 2 years. So credit's a very, very important piece of the equation. FHA, you can be considered for the program with a credit score as low as 580. Does not guarantee that you'll get the loan. We always talk about strength of file, stability of employment, and funds. Conventional requires at least 620. We're blessed, though, to have an in-house program, life-changing, called a portfolio loan program that allows us to consider those loans that may have credit issues that don't qualify for FHA or conventional, but we are very loyal to our members. Members are extraordinarily loyal to us. This is a loan that we keep in-house that, if approved, does not have a set minimum credit requirement.
Bob's referring to Turning Point in our Turning Point program. So, if you've had something happen in your life where it's devastated your credit and you've turned that around, but are still suffering from the effects of that, come see us, come talk to us, and let us get you on that path to home ownership. So, Renee, we have about 30 seconds, and I wanted to get to this question, so I apologize, we're running a little bit out of time, but how do you structure an offer based on some of these first-time homebuyer programs when you're competing against people that are putting a lot of money down? What's your tactic that we can use?
My tactic is my loan officer.
Yeah.
I always include the loan officer in the email to the other agent, and I tell the other agent that my loan officer is very accessible, and they like that. As a listing agent, I like that.
Yeah.
Because I would like to know, as a listing agent, I would like to know what's going on. So a lot of times you include your loan officer in the conversation, and the agent's like, hey, matter of fact, I had one a couple of weeks ago with Zareen. We didn't end up getting a house because of the inspection, but she ended up calling Zareen because she liked her, because she was accessible.
Yeah. Awesome. Great advice. Well, I wish we could talk all afternoon, but I am respectful of everyone's time. It is that time where we share our 3 tips or tricks from our experts today. So the 3 things that we really would love for you to take away from the call today. So Bob, if you could start with the 3 tips from you.
Absolutely. Pre-approval letter is extraordinarily important because that shows that you have sat down with your lender, provided the income and asset documents, and it's not a pre-qualification. I believe that Michigan First has a great reputation. I think hopefully Renee will support that if you have a pre-approval from a reputable, honest lender that has taken the time to make sure you can qualify for what is on the lender, that allows you to go visit homes. Renee will show you homes, but you need to be pre-approved to get that. The first-time homebuyer programs, as we talked about, there are some programs, like you had said, Dan, FHA, that is more conducive to first-time homebuyers. There are also assistance programs, grant programs. We'll walk you through. We'll find out the program that best suits your needs that you can qualify for. Pros and cons, it really depends upon what we're looking to do, how long you plan on being there, credit score, how much money you have to work with. I know that makes people's heads ache at some point, but that's where you sit down with a team, qualified lender, qualified realtor. We walk you through that. By the end of the process, we want you to be satisfied. We want you to enjoy it. Most importantly, understand what you're getting.
Yeah. I love that point. So, and Renee, from the realtor side, what are your 3 points?
So my 3 points is, the first one is get a plan. Make a plan. Then talk to a lender. And if you don't have a lender, Michigan First. You're my top. If you don't have a lender, get a lender, because even if you went to see if I take you to see a house today and you just fall in love with this house, unless you have cash money, you cannot put an offer on a house without a pre-approval. And in this market where it is multiple offers, there is no way that a seller will wait for you to get pre-approved when they already have 5 offers. So get pre-approved first before you go looking.
Yeah. I couldn't stress that enough. Go have that safe conversation with somebody like Bob or one of our loan officers we have here, and really prepare yourself for what should be an enjoyable journey to home ownership. So Well, I can't thank you guys enough. So here's our contact information. I know everybody's been asking for it. So take your phones out now and understand that our team is ready, willing, and able to help with you. So for general information about this webinar or anything non-mortgage related, just info@michiganfirstmortgage.com and we'll get right back to you. You can apply on our website. All of our loan officers, including Bob, are out at michiganfirst.com/mortgage. You can find them all there, read their bios. We are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to speak to a mortgage representative at that phone number there, which is our 365 Live Center. And then, of course, Bob's personal information is right there. I don't think your email address is right. Oh, yeah, it is. Reeves. That's right. I forget your first name's Robert. So your information is right there. And then Renee, your information is there, and certainly cell phone, I'm sure, and email address and website. So thank you both for joining us today. And it is my pleasure to make sure all of our members understand when you're looking for that house, you can get a quote on even a potential property at Michigan First Insurance Agency. They'll certainly get you to one of our 40 plus insurance carriers and tell you what the insurance on that beautiful home you're looking at when you're looking to buy your first home. So thank you all for attending the call today. It has been my pleasure to be with you today, and look for the recording out on our website. Thank you all and have a great rest of this Thursday. Bye-bye.